is she's currently the assistant director for academic LLCs at American University. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley, and she'll take it from here and guide us through today's conversation. Thank you all again.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm going to get my screen up and ready for you all. Alrighty. So I'm super excited to be here today. I really love being able to talk about my journey. I also see some family in the room. My fiance is in the room, so I really appreciate all of you that are here supporting. I'm really here to, yes, first and foremost, I want to share a little bit about who I am, some of my experiences, some of the key things and challenges, but also opportunities that come with managing in the middle. So after that, though, I really want to foster some of the voices in this space. I want to hear directly I'm a very intentional person, so I want to know a little bit about like what you all are going through, what questions you have, the ways in which there are some mid-level managers also in this space, or if you're in this space trying to become a mid-level manager, I want to tap in to some of the voices and experiences in the room as well. So I have a short presentation to kind of highlight some of my experiences, some tips, and some resources before we kind of talk and get into community about what we're all going through and ways in which we can tap into each other to broaden our experiences and our horizons as mid-level managers. So a little bit about me. Yes, I'm a mid-level professional. I have been at mid-level for around 4 years now, going on 5. I'm currently the assistant director for academic LLCs at American University. But as of upcoming Monday, I will be the director of residence life at American University. So can definitely talk through all of those mid-level transitions and internal searches and all that fun stuff if you'd like. I'm a partner and fiance. My fiance is on this call. Shout out to DeMarcus. And I'm a bonus mom and a mom. And I think a lot of mid-level individuals are, more and more having families and things like that. So definitely happy to talk about what that looks like as a mid-level manager and navigating families, or even as a manager managing individuals with families is another thing I really love talking about. Um, it's important for me to talk about that because I think one thing that is super important for mid-level managers is that self-awareness, understanding our identities, understanding the intersectionality of our identities as well. So I think it's important to start off with that as we lead into this conversation today. So mid-level, it comes with its ups, it comes with its downs, and it comes with everything that happens in between those things. Some experiences that I directly wanted to highlight that I have either experienced or been through so that as we're having this conversation, as questions come up, tools and tips come up, I wanted to make sure you know what I have been through and what I haven't, etc. So, some experiences that I have been through, managing up, as you know, in a middle position, you have the people that you supervise, but you also have your supervisor. You have the person who's giving you directives, vision, someone who is giving you the opportunity, the leeway to lead in the ways in which you want. There are often times where there is a need to manage up, and what that has meant for me in different spaces is I have to be intentional and observational of the ways in which I'm interacting with my supervisor. There are times where supervisors aren't completely aware of how they are supervising or the ways in which they are leading in both good and negative ways. But managing up is a situation that a lot of mid-level experiences will entail. So as we talk about the ways in which mid-level incurs, it's important to understand the ways in which you are learning your supervisor, the ways in which you are learning the priorities, not only of your role, of your supervisor's role, your supervisor's responsibilities, so that you're able to lead with intentionality as you're understanding all of what is occurring above you, so that you can better informed lead those who are working alongside you and in your team. I've dealt with a little bit of upward mobility, as I kind of just mentioned. I've had the opportunity to be an internal candidate for a role that has allowed for upward mobility. But I have also been in institutions and been on the other side of interviewing tables where folks are asking questions about, is there opportunities for career mobility? There are times where we talk about the mid-level experience as being somewhat of a funnel. There's so many positions to get into mid-level, but sometimes it's very hard to get out of mid-level. In a few minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about the mid-level season and how important it is not to rush that season. There's a lot of really strong experiences and opportunities you can get, but I would be remiss if I didn't share that there is a ceiling, right? There are times where there aren't as many opportunities, but definitely going to talk through ways in which you can put yourself in the best position to break through that ceiling. So I've definitely dealt with burnout. I've noticed a lot of burnout when it comes to talking through where some of my mid-level professionals are in the field in which I'm working in right now, in my office, my colleagues across the field. There are a lot of times where the mid-level, you're wearing so many different hats. Even the managing up concept can help it feed into that burnout in this role and in these levels. So as we're navigating the different responsibilities, the different needs of people, the different needs of the positions, different needs of the processes, a lot of that falls on this role that we have in this mid-level. And as we are navigating burnout, having to understand alignment and not being in misalignment in our roles, whether it's with the values of our department, values of the institution, direction of the department and institution, or the vision of the department and institution. And those things are completely okay. And definitely going to talk through some tools on how to avoid the misalignment, or if you find yourself in that place, how to understand your values, understand what pivoting and defining what your direction looks like. We've all, well, I'm hoping we all have not, but there is definitely supervision trauma that I do carry at times as a mid-level professional in bringing that vulnerability to this space. And I think as we're talking about managing and how we're supporting our teams here in a few moments, it's important to understand what we're bringing with us as mid-level managers. So that self-awareness of the experiences that we come with us, whether good or bad, making sure we're not thinking about our supervision experiences and journeys as a monolithic, and understanding that there's ebbs and flows of those things. So being super self-aware of our supervision journeys as we move forward is going to be really important. And we're going to talk definitely in depth about self-awareness as well. So as we get into some of the opportunities in this experience, networking and building communities, career circles, sometimes I call them as well, a board of directors. This role can be lonely depending on your position, depending on the department size, and things of that nature, finding other mid-level professionals to tap into, but also to pour into as they pour into you is so exciting in this opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities to connect with mid-levels, including the one that you all have tapped into today. So we're definitely going to talk about how we can build our networks and our career circles so that we can continue to build upon each other and pour into the future of this profession. So career pivots and job searching does happen a bunch, and I'm actually going to tie this in with this fight or flight concept. Mid-level professionals, this season that we're in, if we are rushing the season too fast, we're going to miss the opportunity to really develop some key experiences that will help prepare us for whatever is next, whether it's lateral or moving up. So as we're talking about job searching, and definitely welcome any questions as we land on that section today about what that looks like and what does it mean to fight for yourself in this position, fighting for alignment, fighting for building skills and developing whether I should stay or whether I should go. That concept is kind of what I mean by fight or flight. So welcome any questions folks have about whether I should stay, whether I should go, when should I know I'm ready for the next level, when should I know it's time to leave an institution, and things of that nature. So those are some of the things I have had the opportunity to experience and can definitely speak to, and wanted to share that as we have questions come up in the rest of the presentation. So I think it's really important to understand why mid-level managers matter. And I think for me, and these are my opinions first and foremost, but there are a lot of opportunities for mid-managers, and I think that they also are playing very pivotal roles in their institutions. Now, every institution is obviously different, but I think from the nature of the roles themselves, a lot of mid-level managers are typically playing that bridge between strategy and execution. There are a lot of times where vision is provided from, your directors, your associate directors, et cetera, and that strategy and the way that those ideas, those requests are executed are really falling into the hands of mid-managers. So there's a lot of opportunity there to be able to be that bridge between understanding how to see vision and develop vision, and then developing the strategies how to execute those visions. People and policy, like we are truly the bridges between how policies are interpreted, how policies are coming into play as far as implementation, and how people understand policies and how people value those policies. So whether that is our employees or our students, mid-level managers become sometimes the conduit of building that culture for buy-in when it comes to the policies that are coming in play. So I talked a little bit about vision already, but there are times in which this role has the opportunity to identify how that vision comes into reality. So whether that is tapping into our teams, using student feedback, input, our innovative opportunities to implement strategy and vision in that way, really sometimes lies on the responsibility of the mid-level managers. There are times in which I've noticed that mid-level managers are cultural gatekeepers in good ways and in bad ways at times, depending on how we can cultivate it. But there are opportunities for us to shape culture in our departments. So seeing what that looks like and really making sure that we are owning those responsibilities well and stewarding that responsibility well is very important, as culture can sometimes lie with how you are being seen. And like, it really does tie into representation, as I really love this platform and being able to talk about what it looks like to be a brown female in leadership. And I think that is super powerful, and it really meant a lot to me to see that I can hold those positions. So representation obviously definitely matters in this place as well, as people are seeing that I can do what you are doing, and being that person to see and understand that I can manifest that for myself as well. And then I'm actually going to kind of tie mentorship and advocacy together in a sense. There is a lot of advocacy that goes into being a mid-level manager, advocating for your staff, advocating for the staff that your staff supervises. There is a lot of advocacy that comes in that place, and you actually have a really strong voice when it comes to that advocacy and the tables that you're able to sit at and the places you're able to show up in to be able to talk through what it looks like to support your teams and your staffs better. And you also have the opportunity to do that on the flip side in mentorship. You have the opportunity to tap into staff that you are supervising. You have the opportunity to pour in to those people so that you are continuously building the future of this profession and preparing those around you to be ready for what they are looking forward to as what is next as well. So I mentioned earlier that this season is super important, and I want to definitely touch base on the fact that rushing this season could land you back in this season, but rushing this season could also allow for you to miss out on really some crucial experiences. I'm definitely one to attest. I came into this field and I had this 10-year plan laid out for myself, and when that plan did not happen the way exactly I saw it to happen, if I had tried to push for that plan, I really would have missed out on opportunities, missed out on relationships, missed out on people that would have prepared me to be ready for what it was I was planning for. So some really important things that I've been able to develop or am developing in this season of mid-level. First and foremost, a systems mindset. Being able to take a step back outside of my daily responsibilities and broaden my horizons and my mindset to think through the systems of things happening behind the scenes has been incredibly important to how I've developed vision in this role. So understanding the reasons and the whys, asking those questions, even if I'm annoying, I'm gonna ask a why question. Why do we do this? Why is it this is happening this way? Help me understand the impact of this decision, and how it impacts different levels. So you have the opportunity, because you're at those tables, to be able to ask those questions, to have a systems mindset. I think this is a situation and experience that a lot of individuals are building regardless of their position. But I feel as if I've done a lot more of it in this level, and that's ambiguous decision making. So as we're making decisions with potentially either very little information, potentially very little guidance on where this decision is taking us, but being able to make a quick decision with as much information that I can have, and using my intuition, using my innovation to make decisions that are best impacting everyone that is involved through all of the stakeholders, all of the students, people, parents, etc. So I mentioned self-awareness, and self-awareness can come in many different shapes and forms, things in which you should be self-aware of. But a lot of them come from understanding who you are as a person, your identity. One thing I asked my staff to do in my previous role, and Kayan can attest, I asked them to develop presentations on how their identities impacted their supervision styles. And I think that self-awareness can really come into play to build better leaders. The more you're aware of how you are impacting others as a supervisor, not saying to change how you show up or to change how you respond, etc. But as long as you are aware of how you are impacting, I think a really good, important question to ask yourself is, what are your supervisees experiencing of you? So what are their experiences? Are they all having very different experiences of you? And there are spaces where that's okay as you are leading with intentionality, but there are also spaces should they be all getting the same amount of attention? Should they be all getting the same amount of pour into or development? So I think those questions come up a lot as I think about supervision. But teamwork is a very important aspect in mid-level as you are being a campus partner, sometimes the face of that partnership at times, as you are navigating different stakeholders, as you're navigating parents. I think having a self-awareness as far as your professional identity and the ways in which you show up are super important, but also when it comes to your values, which directly ties into your professional alignment. What values do you have? What values are you able to actually tap into your role? What responsibilities do you have that align with your values? What don't? Does that determine how much energy that responsibility gets versus the ones that are not necessarily directly tied to your values? Are the amount of responsibilities that you have actually feeding into your values enough to make you fulfilled in your role? So I think that alignment is super important, and we're definitely going to talk about some tips on how you can navigate your alignment in a moment. But it's important to navigate and understand professional alignment in this season so that as you are digging deeper or making lateral roles, this information can help you as you're making decisions moving forward. Sustainable leadership practice. This has actually been my biggest lesson in this season, is how can I lead sustainably and consistently leading sustainably? What are things that completely take away energy? What are things that drain me? What are things, what types of people, what types of practices, what types of tasks deplete my energy when it comes to my leadership? How am I leading when I don't have enough to pour into those around me? So what are practices, and not just band-aids I put on, or not just, a self-care day that I'm taking on, but what are sustainable habits that are helping me practice my leadership in a way that is not depleting me and draining me by the end of the day, week, etc. And then lastly, community and career development. I have been able to truly tap into those around me. Building a career circle is so important. When promoting this, I was thinking about a African proverb: if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go somewhere far, go together. And I truly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the people that I have tapped into, that people I have reached out to ask advice for, mentors, people that are on my board of directors. And if you have more questions about board of directors, I definitely welcome that as well. But people that can help me and people that I can pour into as well, that synergy of how people can really help navigate and cultivate your experiences and your communities in this field. So I talked a lot about professional alignment, and I really love to talk with professionals about how you can run a diagnostic scan on yourself to make sure you're in a place where you feel professional alignment. So where am I most fulfilled in my work? What aspects feel misaligned or draining of me? And then what has changed since I have began in this field? Obviously, we have all been through a lot of change. And we've all dealt with things that either may not be directly in alignment with our values or our preferences at times. But I'm also hoping that there are times where you do fulfill in your work, but what is the balance of it all? How do you understand if you are completely in misalignment with what you are doing right now? And this conversation with yourself is going to be pivotal to understanding whether you are where you need to be, whether that is physically, geographically, professional, focal areas, to help you to align to a place that could answer these questions in a different way. So these are questions I recommend that you ask yourself to understand if you feel like you are professionally aligned with where you are. And if those answers are leading you in a different way, I definitely recommend that you take the time to explore and reflect on what those answers show up for you as. And then as you're, doing your diagnostic scan, checking your current systems. Professional alignment and self-awareness definitely go hand in hand. Sometimes mid-level professionals can get to a place of complacency. And I'm hoping that we're avoiding mediocrity in this level as well. There's probably going to be times where burnout maybe has led us into a system of mediocrity, or burnout has led us into, I don't have it right now to be able to be my best self. But as we are realigning with our values, and as we're currently checking our systems, understanding where you are is important, and how you are leading and how those individuals are experiencing your leadership. So where are you running smoothly? What are things that you feel like you're doing incredibly well? Where do you feel like you're misfiring? What are things that you have come up in your evals, making sure that you're doing evals, whether it's the system of your institution or your own personal practice. Evaluations and feedback is love, so I highly recommend it. And then how has your leadership identity evolved? Is it evolving? Should it evolve? What direction should you be working towards? Are also really great questions to ask yourself so that you can understand if you're in alignment or what directions you need to realign to. So before I jump into like questions and conversation, I do want to make sure to share. So feel free to either take a picture, a screenshot, whatever the case may be. Here are some resources that have really helped as I've been navigating my mid-level career. Here are some books here. I've definitely used the first 90 days. I will say this is the only one on here that I feel like at times can be a little outdated, but I think it has some good nuggets and structure. And then I also have some articles that I recommend tapping into. I think professional development in this season right now can be difficult. I'm not sure if everyone's institution is like mine. Professional development funds are starting to be a very widespread privilege that may or may not be a thing at your institution. So tapping into things that these things do not cost, if you would like to pour into yourself. And then I also have some podcasts that I highly recommend. That sometimes I have about an hour commute sometimes, and I turn on some of these things to help pour into my mind and making sure that I'm building practices to develop myself on a daily basis. I'd be remiss if I did not touch on ways in which you can be a waymaker in building and shaping the future of this profession in this mid-level opportunity. So here are some ways in which I recommend that as mid-levels, we can push the profession forward. Joining a mid-level professional learn in lunch or lunch and learn in lean in circle for accountability. So finding your community essentially. If you can't find one, start one. There's a bunch of individuals on this call, and that could be just enough to start a conversation regularly. hosting at your institution a mid-year mini retreat, whether that is mid-level professionals in your department, in your division, in the institution as a whole. Or if you have spaces just like this on your campus for Black professionals on your campus, I definitely recommend that as well. So setting up reoccurring calendar invites, reflecting each semester on how and which ways you can tap into each other is very important. And then lastly, I talked a lot about feedback and professional assessments. This has been one of the key things that's helped me understand the experiences of those around me in my supervision and my management and my leadership. So if your institution does not already have 360 professional assessments, there are definitely ways for you to assess your leadership, whether that's peer-to-peer or helping others assess their leadership as well. Could be important to shaping the future of this profession. So I definitely want to take a pause. I've been talking, I'm done talking at you. I want to talk with you as we move forward, but I want to see if anyone has any questions or topics that spoke to them that they wanted to hear a little bit more, either from myself or those that are other mid-level professionals in the space. Feel free to unmute yourself. This is open and free-flowing.
I can start it. I can kick us off. So a question for you is, I guess in your experience, and if other people want to share as well, how has the journey been, and just knowing like how wide the mid-manager like sector of the field is, how has your experience been like kind of navigating a job search process where, maybe one job is assistant director at like a larger school and it requires more compared to like a smaller school, or like I guess like the how mid-level roles show up across different institution types and population sizes and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned the different position titles and different institution types. Assistant director can mean one thing at a small private, and it can mean a completely different thing at a large like SEC school, right? The amount of people you're supervising, the amount of responsibilities you have, is it a functional area devoted assistant director? I think when it comes to navigating that search, and the importance of those different roles, I think what I focus most on is what those responsibilities look like underneath that title. I'm not really focused much on the title personally, but I do understand sometimes those things are important if you're thinking about the ways in which politics come into play. But as you're looking at those responsibilities, do those, I'm going to say alignment again, but do those align to what you are looking for? What of those responsibilities are some things that maybe you've already done? Highlighting those as you're preparing for that job search or preferring those interviews. And then, but also looking through where are ways in which you can grow. Are there other assistant directors at that institution? Or is there community opportunities for you there? Understanding what populations of students you may be working with, how many students, how many communities, but also thinking about that, sustainable leadership conversation. Is this position sustainable for me? Like, am I going to be supervising the entire department as an assistant director, or am I going to have a couple area coordinators that I'm supervising that, have their own staff? So I really think you need to understand what it is you are directly looking for, and looking at the job responsibilities to see if that aligns with where you have been, what you are looking to do, and what really will fulfill you as you are landing that position. I definitely welcome any other viewpoints on that as well. I know there are some really experienced mid-levels in this space, so I want to tap into them as well.
Hello, I'm Ernest, international student at Iowa State University. I'm in student affairs. I'm a graduate student. Um, and I want to ask you a question about how you started this whole journey. Did you start working as a residential life, like in residential life, or you started it somewhere and landed in residential life? Because I have my assistantship in outreach programs and I'm very interested in working in residential hall or residential life, but I want to know how the journey was for you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started as a hall director in my grad program. I sought out student affairs fun fact, student affairs has kind of just always been in my blood. My dad was in student affairs my entire life, and I was able to have access to a college setting a lot to have led to why I wanted to go into this field. But I started as a hall director. So I actually supervised around 19 RAs, 3 buildings, and I had some functional areas under me as well. So I think learning in that space was super pivotal. And I think that the grad work alongside of my assistantship really was also pivotal to building that experience for me. That was at the University of West Georgia. And then I was able to land professional roles at a couple of different schools leading from that work through to where I am now.
Okay, so what would be your advice for someone like me that is working in outreach programs, but I'm very interested in working in residential life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I in my most recent role was able to transition from a field outside of residence life. And I think when it comes to transitioning into residence life, how you can speak to ways in which the experiences that you have speak to some of the key functional areas of residence life. So I think, how are you able to develop experiences and expertise around managing conflict? You mentioned working in outreach. How have you worked with, what does your customer service look like? How have you worked with families? How have you worked with partners? Ways in which you've been able to collaborate. I think collaboration is a very key expertise for mid-level professionals. So the ways in which you've been able to navigate conflicting priorities of different stakeholders, ways in which you've been able to manage and build teams, developing culture. So those are a lot of things that are not completely solely residence life experiences. There are a lot of functional areas that you're able to identify different skills in that area that will definitely translate. But I do recommend looking into spaces and some of those books, resources, articles to understand the ways in which those skills can transfer into residence life will be definitely important. Or if you're in the opportunity to talk with other individuals around learning what those aspects are, the institutions you're looking at, whether it's at your own institution, the more you can learn as being a campus partner, I think is going to put you in the put your best foot forward when thinking about how to transition into residence life.
All right, thank you very much.
Other questions, or I don't also welcome, are there any challenges anyone is dealing with personally or professionally in the mid-level journey that you want to kind of bring to the group? Well, I actually have a question for the group. For those that are at mid-level in the spaces, what are ways in which, or tools that you have used, tools, strategies, or ways you have used to develop yourself as a mid-level manager?
Hello, friends. Pierre Campbell, Assistant Director at the University of Maryland, College Park. I think as a middle manager, I think Ashley touched upon it, but you have to have some discretion in what you say yes and no to. And actually, one way to get good at middle management is learn how to say no. It's a complete sentence, and everything is not your responsibility. Some of your best development is what you say no to. Because you could end up putting yourself in situations that you carry with you for the rest of your career that could be detrimental to your professional development and your spirit of wanting to do this work. So I think that's going. But on the good side of things, when you're a middle manager, you have to get out your department. So you want to get involved in things outside of your department. You need to be on search committees for other units. You need to be involved in your division, whether that's working on the strategic plan or if that's working for professional staff development for your division. You need to be a name and a person that is trustworthy and reliable, and you do that by creating those collaborative opportunities. So if there's an idea you had when you weren't mid-level that was successful, And now you're mid-level, you take it and scale it up and do it on a larger scale as a middle manager. And that literally buys you some credibility across your division, and that gives some leeway to your director to say they made a great choice in making you a middle manager in their unit. Outside of that, get involved in the professional organizations at the regional level, or if your state, they do things depending on where you are in the country or the world. Doing those are great ways to professionally develop. You want to just do things that challenge you to either build up your administrative skills, build up your people skills, and or just get you to be creative and in some situations where you just have to manage a lot of things. Because management is an art and not a science. So you just got to figure out what works for you.
Thank you so much, Pierre. Are there any other insights anyone wants to share? There was some dropped into the chat as well. Intentionally chasing improvement, like attending this meeting, yes, and asking questions are definitely also really great things to be doing. As Pierre was sharing, I definitely was thinking through as a mid-level professional, one of the most important lessons I had to learn was navigating relationships within your department. As sometimes for those of you who are just fresh, brand new into navigating into mid-level, sometimes you're still really close in age. To those that you are supervising, you're used to like the outings, you're used to going and doing this in the residence halls, doing those apartment crawls and all that fun stuff. There is still fun community making in the mid-level, but I think it's important as you are developing what boundary making looks like for you, kind of feeding into what Pierre was talking about and saying no. But I think as you're developing and making those boundaries for yourself to better build foundational relationships with those that you're supervising or your partners and teams, is also going to be super important. What are some tips we have for mid-level professionals who potentially may be navigating politics on campus? Or ways in which you all have navigated politics on campus? Hey, Anne, I'm actually going to tap you. I know you've had to do this a little bit.
Yeah, so I can speak on that, just like navigating the politics and whatnot. I think one thing that's been very important for me is just at the end of the day, like recognizing the humanity in everybody, despite how people may be feeling and what's going on, just recognizing that we're all humans with valid feelings, regardless like of the perspective. I think entering with that mindset is helpful at first, but also, just at the end of the day, I'm a very solution-oriented person, especially in my current role. Even though things are happening, I have to navigate. It's like, okay, so how can we get to the point where everybody is, comfortable or at peace with the different situations? And it does take a lot of intentional conversations where I have to challenge myself, maybe speak up more when I know people may not know how to navigate conversation without, bringing like personal feelings and whatnot. So for me, it's been really putting myself out there to challenge myself to be, an advocate, but also know how to balance people and recognizing that their emotions are valid at the end of the day. And have to be considerate of those things if you want to, make a good result at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But politics and navigating politics is something that we're all going to need to do. One of the ways in which I like to be proactive with navigating politics is that whenever, I start a brand new position or I'm coming into an institution, or if you haven't been doing it and would like to start now, being incredibly observant is super important. You definitely want to be able to watch and listen and learning the interactions, the priorities, the stakeholders that are involved. I talked a little bit about the systems mindset really helps for you to understand. So you're not caught playing a game that you've never even experienced before, if that makes any sense. So being able to learn the priorities of your supervisor, learning the priorities of your division, what is important, How are you navigating what is important, but also balancing the intersectionality of what is important to your supervisor versus what is important to you? So as you are able to observe and learn, I think you'll find yourself in a better equipped place to navigate politics on your campus and in your department. With that being said, I wanted to just give one last round if anyone has any questions. But my email I'm going to drop into the chat if anyone ever wanted to connect on a personal level. I am definitely available for that. But yeah, I can definitely stick around if there are any questions, and definitely we'll turn things back over to Kayon if there are not.
Absolutely. Can I just drop one gem that might be helpful?
Absolutely, please.
I think so. I think A, don't take politics personal. It's just business. And B, you got to navigate with yourself. Do you want to be right or do you want to be influential?
Thank you for that tidbit, and thank you, Ashley, for navigating this great conversation, and to all our participants as well. I am I'm in an entry level role right now, but we'll be transitioning to a mid-level role in the next 2 weeks. So this has definitely been helpful for me, and I hope has been helpful for everybody else. The VPN socials are all about, celebrating, one another, giving each other resources, those tips and stuff like that. So we truly appreciate you all making time out your day to, come with us and come chit chat and come listen or write down notes, whatever you may have done. And again, just thank you all. We hope you all have a good rest of your day and have a good transition to the Thanksgiving holiday as well.